what happens is they don't realize it. They don't realize it. They don't realize it until they keep having the same blockage in their relationships. Most people have patterns. So they don't realize that there's some kind of pre-existing trauma or insecurity that is almost orchestrating their behavior in relationships until they lose somebody they truly love, or they hurt somebody they truly love. Then they take a minute and be like, is there something, there might be something wrong. And that curiosity, I think, led to clicking on my page. And then they started being open to the idea, because nobody really wants to go to a shrink. And a lot of people, especially the younger generation, especially boys, they think if you have to go to a therapist, there's something already wrong with you. So I knew that's what I'm going to be up against. But if you do it in bite-sized forms on social media, they'll click, and even if they accidentally absorb something, it's better than nothing.
And why you
Well,
ran into
the
those
thing
kind of...
I love about working with entrepreneurs and CEOs is they are so unaware of what is causing them to pursue this route, and they're just like these, successful men, and they think, I've got my shit together, I'm doing so well at work, because they measure life success by work, but they don't understand that becoming an entrepreneur says so much about you. Like, if you tell me you're an entrepreneur, I can tell you about your childhood.
Talk me through that.
What I usually can tell when somebody's an entrepreneur, first thing I can tell is you don't really like authority. What happens to other entrepreneurs,
100%.
myself included, what happens, and I'm not an entrepreneur, but myself included, but entrepreneurs, first thing I know is that you don't like authority, because the motivation to leave a steady income that is so safe and so reliable and just risk it all and just do your own thing usually comes because you hate orders. You don't like a position of authority. You need to be your own boss. You can't go into somebody else's workplace and being told what to do as a grown-up. And so what that signals is there may have been, this is me going in too deep, but there may have been some kind of hostility with one parent or both. There may have been some dictatorship that they didn't like. They didn't trust the authority figure growing up. So then what happens is they start to rebel against authority, and then the idea of having a boss emailing you saying, oh, you are 6 minutes late, they can't do it. Whereas that person is very easy, very happy to just be told what to do, be 55 years old and still clocking in and out of work. They tend to be either people pleasers or had a really passive kind of acceptance of authority growing up. So that's usually the first thing I can tell. Is any of that ringing bells for you?
Definitely. But I think what's interesting there is the fact that it's people who have an easier, not easier grow up, but like life is like they're financially set growing up as a kid, and then they're in like a nice city, not much danger. That's when they might go through that 9 to 5 period, and things are a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But for me, I guess like I was always kind of like hungry to provide for people.
Survival mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like my family, very ordinary, didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But we're completely fine. Like, and they've helped me a lot to project forward.
Yeah.
In terms of giving me opportunity. But I kind of like always want. It's probably like proving it to yourself as well.
Yeah.
But that kind of like ability doesn't stop, is what I've realized.
Yeah, especially if you came from economically deprived backgrounds, if you ever felt unseen financially, like you couldn't have your financial needs met, it gives you that drive. Two things: it either makes you accept ordinary, or it makes you completely fear being broke. You have an intense fear of being poor that drives you, and then there's no cap, there's no like limit, there's no like I'll stop at 100K a year. There's just literally no limit. And particularly when they grow up in environments where I don't know if your viewers would know, but council state environments, the reason why that really triggers entrepreneurship is they don't see a middle class. They either see council state houses or rich houses. There's no in between in their world. They don't see where being a teacher will get you or where being a lawyer will get you. They just see where they're living and like maybe on TV and stuff, all the really successful people. So they end up reaching for the stars a lot more. So there's so much that goes into the motivation behind a CEO and also the sacrifices they have to make.
And those sacrifices are relationships and connections.
Main thing.
As I said to you before, and so the main purpose of my podcast is obviously it's like an entrepreneurship podcast, but it's always an overarching theme is to help younger people live a richer and more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
I use the word richer and fulfilling because it's nuanced.
Yeah.
Because richer can mean money in the bank, but it can also mean better connections. It can mean a better lifestyle.
Yeah.
So how important is that, do you think, in terms of like when we're building relationships with people, especially in the earlier days, like how do we kind of come into these relationships so that they're actually going to be something that are going to be successful and not lead to divorce?
Well, the problem is there's lots of two main problems I'm finding in modern CEOs. Firstly, the skills that you have to harbor in order to be successful at business are the exact opposite skills you need for successful relationships. You have to be logical, you have to be cutthroat, you have to be emotionally detached, you have to kind of think things through and problem solve, whereas relationships rely on you being non-logical, entirely emotional, entirely connected, and in tuned with somebody's emotions. Being a CEO, the last thing you need to be is in tuned with somebody's emotions, because it's like, you haven't come here on time, you haven't sorted this out, bye. But those skills, the more you kind of practice it, the more detrimental it can be to a relationship. So that's the first kind of problem. The second problem, particularly for really successful CEOs, is they attract emotionally detached women. The reason being is because the really emotionally connected woman who's super loyal and super loving, she can't be with a man who's super busy. She can't do it. She's too anxious. She misses him too much. She needs him home all the time. She needs predictability. She needs stability. She wants a home. She wants you to help her put the kids to bed at night. Whereas the woman that's like, yeah, you can go on business trips for a couple of months. Yeah, I'll see you when I see you. She tends to be a bit more emotionally detached. So what happens is that man ends up not having his emotional needs met at work, and sometimes they can be missed at home as well. So they end up having a little bit of a filter for that connection at home as well.
That's super interesting. How does it work then in terms of like, so when people are picking a partner,
yeah,
and obviously like there's like a high number of divorces happening recently. I don't know what the average is, probably like 70% or 60%.
God forbid, yeah.
What do you think are some of those like leading indicators that are leading towards people getting divorced?
People getting a divorce tends to be, first thing I would say is too many alternatives. We live in a times where you can replace your partner while still being in the same room as them. You jump on the phone, you download an app, they are right there in front of you, and you can message someone new. And even if it's not a person, it can be a consumerism is meant, it can be a holiday. I can just go, you're annoying me, I'm going here. Look at the ability to replace emotions are so available now. So I think the alternatives is a really big one. Those with less alternatives tend to last longer, because they just don't have the alternatives, so they tend to stay connected. So the alternatives one. The other thing that really kind of predicts it is not being in touch with each other's emotions, like I was saying. So what I mean by that, the reason why that's increasing so much is we have so much access to like phones and distractions. So what happens is when your partners come home with some kind of problem, instead of stopping everything and listening, you're now on your phone, busy, this, that, and the other. The connection dies. And so people are feeling unseen and unloved and unheard. And when people are feeling those things, because we're all kind of a bit like, I don't want to look like I'm being needy, I don't want to look like I'm doing all the work, instead of communicating it, we go to the alternatives. And that's kind of what's happening with life. Instead of communicating and understanding that relationships have their roughs and toughs, you just go to alternatives now because it's so easy.
That's something I've actually really tried to work on, in terms of like, I have like work time, and I'm working, my phone's like off, whatever. And then if I am like posting online, because I do a lot of obviously podcast stuff, then when me and my girlfriend Elise are together, I have no phone, no distractions, whatever. And then she's had to kind of work on that too, because like she has her own business, so she's had to kind of.
And is social media part of her business?
It's a huge.
It's everybody's, right? Yeah, it's everybody. It's horrible. And then what happens is it's so addictive because you don't know what's kind of recreational and what's work. So you end up just being on that phone forever.
100%. Yeah. And then the funny part about that is now the fact that I want to do activities that don't involve those things. Yeah. So if we go for a walk, or we have a dog, might go to the beach, might go for hikes. Yeah. So it's about trying to like include those activities. But where I find the most difficult is Monday to Friday. Yeah. Because that's the part where like your brain is just on, like most people are working at all times during that period, especially when you're doing like a global business. So it's trying to put in those barometers whereby it's in the morning or in the evening. Yeah. What do you think about kind of setting boundaries with partners?
I think that's a great idea. What happens when two people are busy? The only reason it leads to disconnect is if there's no reliability. What I mean by that is if me and my partner are both really busy, that's okay if I know every Friday we have dinner together, we go out for dinner. Because what happens is all of the anxiety and everything that you might be having, all the emotions, you've got an outlet for it, a particular time, or it might be we have dinner every day. We've got dedicated time. What happens to couples who end up living separate lives is they don't make that dedicated time. So every emotion that they're harboring throughout the day, like I'm stressed, I'm upset, and this, that, and the other, they haven't had a chance to release it to their partner because there's no dedicated time. So they end up becoming resentful. They start resenting them. They're like, you don't even know what my day was going on. You don't even ask me about my business. You don't ask me this, because they didn't make that dedicated time. So that resentment is almost like frozen anger. They've got all this anger that they freeze in time and they hold on to. And then when they try and come to couples counseling, or when they try and, when one's strayed or something like that, it's years of emotional neglect that we can't undo in sessions.
What's the solution to that?
It's dedicated time.
Yeah.
It's prioritizing. What I mean by that is, no matter how great your business is, no matter how important, I'm speaking for myself as well, because sometimes I get carried away with it. No matter how important all of these things is, they mean nothing when you have no one to share that success with.
100%. You don't want to be on the mountain on your own.
Absolutely. You don't. Here's the thing. We all get sick. We all get old. Yeah. Now, all of the business deals, all of those things, none of these people are going to be there when you get sick and old. Yeah. They're not even going to care when we pass away. So when we sacrifice connections to kind of prioritize success, we're measuring success incorrectly. Success is measured by the people that will be there when you aren't successful. How many of those relationships have you cultivated? Now, if you're very financially successful, but the people that would be there for you if you weren't financially successful is getting less and less, you are not successful. Does that make any sense? It didn't make sense to me.
No, it makes complete sense, because I think especially like as you're building like a business, your network is getting bigger.
Yeah.
And like that's a big thing, is that you want to build your network and you want to do that. But then there's a clear distinction between who's a business partner or someone that you just collaborate with, and then someone who's actually there for you.
Exactly that.
And
the network is getting bigger, but it doesn't mean it's getting stronger.
100%. And then there's because I can always say that you can count on like one hand how many close friends I have. And I don't want to extend that as well. And you must be obviously very cognizant of it too, because like your content has blown up. So you can imagine when people that would contact you, be like, "Hey, you want to go for dinner?"
What's really hard with my life, what I find, because of like when you've got a career like yours, it's niche. So whatever it is, whatever intelligence or success or whatever it is, only people in the know. Because my kind of business is something that everybody can relate to, because it's about human nature. When I meet somebody and I talk to them, just because that's how I talk, they think we're best friends. They're like, "She's my best friend. You're gonna," and I'm like, "What was your name again?" Because I'm so connected to that human kind of activation that people connect to me very quickly. But I just, unfortunately, I always say to everybody, I only have two hands. I'm so sorry. But I do love that, because what happens is people feel connected very quickly and easily. It's just that unfortunately I don't always have the time to nurture those connections, so it's a bit annoying. So that's the only thing that I find difficult. Have you managed to maintain all your connections as you become busier?
To some degree. I have to be more concise with my time, for sure, and just more like time allocated, whether I meet people or whether I allocate time for like WhatsApp messages. Like
How's your relationship with your parents since you've got busier?
Good, but see, they live in Ireland and I live in Singapore, so obviously I saw them at Christmas, but I had some before that for like a year. What I'd love to do, and what I always say this as well, is that I'd love to build a house in Asia and have my parents live there.
I need my parents. I'm missing them as well at the moment. They keep messaging me here and there, and I always say, I'll message back and stuff, and I just haven't had a chance recently.
I try to put up time for calls. I always do that. So
very stressful,
because they live in like the middle of fucking nowhere in Ireland, so I try to do like video calls when I can and things like this, but trying to build that framework.
They're happy for you though. They're proud.
100%. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because I think they saw that I was quite disgruntled, I guess, in like the 9-to-5 kind of setup and how that kind of went.
Very soul destroying.
Yeah, so it's kind of good. I want to ask you about marriage. Do you think we need to get married? People need to get married,
especially men.
Yeah.
If you have watched any of my videos and thought, "Oh my God, this sounds exactly like what I'm going through," then you need to work with me today. I will be able to undo some of these patterns that you have been noticing in your relationships and with the women that you select. I will be able to give you the exact skills and tools you need to enhance your self-esteem, to set your boundaries, and more importantly, how to create the relationship that you've been craving and that you deserve. Just click the link below to work with me today.